Hello, you folks. Welcome to John Solo's Beer Brigade. I'm John Solo. You are not. And I'm sorry, I'm getting my screen up there. All right. I think I'm prepared here. Today has been a day of being unprepared. So, anyways, a couple things before we get into this. Today I'm working on a Tantor project with Kurt Graves. It's Perilous Quartz Book 1. I think it's called Prince and the Assassin. And we have coming up here in the next few days... let's see here, Irresistible Dragons, Book 2. We're working on that, I think, at the beginning of next week. We have Perilous Quartz Book 2, Prince in Disguise. We also have Command and Care Book 4 from Mortician Knight. It's called Stepdaddy. We have a couple little side projects that may slid in. One is one of the ones that the one I'm reading from today. And we have, this is kind of exciting to me, Marie Sexton. You all know Marie Sexton. And she has given us virtually the entire Coda series to redo, which is freaking fantastic. I'm flipping back over my view here. So we've got a really busy month of November coming up here. We've got a lot of stuff that I'm making up on top of a lot of stuff that we're getting into. I'm excited. But today, what we have going on is a new author, little Silvana Falcon. No relation. Well, at least not by blood. But the book that we're working on is the first in a new series by a new author. I think that there's a prequel out that you can get. But looking at this, good looking cover, by the way. I love how he's doing the thing. But Fated to the Dragon Prince, The Last Mortals, Book 1. This is a fun dragon romp, and I'm excited. If you guys have been at... if you guys were at GRL, you know that I did a reading from this author in the audiobook narration panel. It was a lot of fun. I got a great reception, so I'm excited about this. That's right, Lissa. What time is Ramblin' Gremlin? That's why you came here, isn't it? Just to announce that. What time are we doing it? Is it 1 o'clock? Is that it? I kind of forget what we talked about. I'm sorry, it's been a long week. 1 o'clock, I think, is Ramblin' Gremlin tomorrow instead of 11. So, anyways, I'm going to get into this. We're going to be doing a live read here, and this is just... consider this a Storytime episode. We're actually going to be recording this book in a couple weeks, so this is kind of a precursor. And I've been working all day and other shit too. My voice is a little rough, so please forgive me there. The author, Silvana Falcon, just put up the link in the description here on Facebook, and as well, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you look in the comments below, you'll be able to see the link so you can actually get the book. It is out today. The sky above the city burned orange with fire, the perfect opportunity to strike. "Come on," Dario whisper-hissed to his friend as they made their way down one of the less crowded alleys that ran parallel to Main Street. Benjamin was dragging his feet. To some degree, his hesitance was understandable. Ben rarely came into the city, and he had never stolen from anyone. Still, Dario's patience was limited. The show would start any minute now, and they needed to be there when it did. "We'll never get another chance like this." He dragged his friend forward. "No one will even look at us." "Did you see that vending machine?" Ben pointed behind them. "What vending machine?" Dario wasn't looking back. He was scanning the alley in front of them where it opened up onto a larger road. People were passing by in small groups, all heading toward the same destination, the old basketball court near the park. If Aunt Marcia was right, a giant pyre had been set up there, waiting to be lit. Already the air smelled like ash, saturated with soot from the fires that had been burning all over the city since the early morning. They had been able to see the smoke even back home, in their settlement in the mountains. The vending machine was selling blood. Ben grew pale around the nose. Dario waved him off. "It's not real blood." "It said 100% mortal," Ben insisted. "That only described the taste. It's still not real." Dario's stomach churned. He knew the stuff in the vending machines wasn't real. The bottles were cheap artificial snacks to tide a hungry vampire over to their next lunch break. But he really didn't need to be reminded how coveted 100% mortal blood was. The kind of blood that pulsed through his veins, loud in his ears now, as they reached the end of the alley. "Think about it," he made himself say. "If they had blood like that, they wouldn't sell it for cheap. Vamps and mages would be fighting over it." He kept his voice low so their conversation wouldn't be heard by any of the passers-by. Guaranteed, none of those were mortals. This fact was made obvious by the wings on most of their backs. This city was under dragon rule, and a majority of its citizens were the scaly variety. A couple of tall young men walked in front of Dariel. They might have looked human, if not for the pairs of scarlet wings folded neatly against their backs, and their tails. There were those too. Dariel hated those tails. He knew they were strong enough to trap him if they wound around his leg, strong enough to swipe him off his feet. It wasn't fair. Dragons were already more muscular and they could fly. Why did they need tails as well? Just to make sure that Dariel would never win in a fight against one of these creatures, no matter how dirty or how clever he played. Good thing, then, that he knew better than to get into a fight. That he knew better than to let himself be detected. Without thought, one of his hands went to his ear. His camouflage was His camouflage was still in place. Good. "I'm jealous," Ben said, noting the motion of Dariel's hand. "You've got it easy with those ears. This stupid thing only works half the time." He rapped his knuckles against a small device half hidden up his sleeve. When it wasn't acting up, it shot flames up into the air with the right touch. Ben could use it to fool people into thinking he was a low-level mage, someone who'd been blessed with a rather small amount of magic. He wouldn't impress anyone, but he also wouldn't pique anyone's interest. Dariel didn't have to fall back on technology to pass. He had inherited a set of well-crafted, fake, pointy ears from his late father. At a quick glance, they made him look like a dark elf, in combination with his skin color. Granted, his dad had been a shade darker than him, but most people tried not to look too closely at a dark elf. Thank the stars. "You'll be okay," he said to Ben. "Everyone will be too distracted to pay attention to your scrawny ass." Ben huffed. "Like you're any less scrawny than me." Dariel shrugged. Compared to the dragons around them, they were both scrawny as hell. The dragons didn't go to any efforts of hiding their physique either. At the most, they wore scraps of thin fabric that covered nothing more than their genitals. Some cultural bullshit. Dariel didn't understand it, but most dragons followed it religiously. "Stick close to me." Dariel took his friend by the arm. Together they made their way toward the entrance of the basketball court. As expected, the court was packed with people. Not only dragons, either. This event had drawn citizens of all races out of their houses. A young girl with cat ears bounced back and forth on her feet to Dariel's left, and an old man with dark feathers in his hair muttered curses under his breath to his right. A group of men and women in robes pushed their way through the crowd and closer to the pyre. Mages, probably. Dariel's heart pounded in his ears. He was no stranger to sneaking into the city and taking in the sights, but he liked to keep his distance normally. Ben was right. Entering the belly of the beasts like this was insanity. If anyone looked too closely, if anyone discovered their true nature, they were done for. Their blood and organs would be fought over at the auction house before the sun set. He pretended to be brave so Ben wouldn't shit his pants, but he needed a moment to remind himself why he'd ever thought coming here would be a good idea. Because his community was hurting. The community that had taken him in and sheltered him after his dad got killed. The community that had shown him nothing but love and kindness. He'd do anything to help them. Even this. And, well, if he enjoyed the thrill, if he enjoyed sticking it to the paranormal freaks, well, that was only a tiny part of his motivation, really. Nothing got his blood pumping like the knowledge that he was about to take something from the monsters who had taken his family from him. His jaw set, his fists clenched. He could do this. "Watch," he whispered to Ben. "Any minute now. As soon as they're distracted, we strike." He nodded at a pair standing to their right, robed women with generous purses. One of them already had silent tears streaming down her face. What if they track the coins? They have magic. We'll spend the money before they know it's gone. Don't worry so much." Ben didn't seem convinced, but he stopped arguing. He knew that they needed the cash just as much as Dariel did. It was his aunt they were doing this for, after all, to buy her the medicine she needed to stop coughing up her lungs. "Such a shame what's happening to the royal family," an old man murmured in front of them. Since he didn't have any features that made him stand out visually, Dariel guessed that he was a shifter of some sort. If he'd had any magic of his own, he might have been able to tell what kind, but since he didn't, he could only speculate. "I hear the prince is ill as well," an old lady to his side responded. "The first prince," the old man nodded. "Thank the heavens Prince Curran has been spared." "Thank the heavens," the old lady repeated. A hush settled over the crowd as movement registered in the corner of Dariel's eye. A group of winged men descended from the sky to hover above the pyre. Dragons, no doubt. 5 of them. 2 to either side of the royal prince. Dariel sucked in a breath. He'd seen images of Prince Curran in discarded newspapers, and sometimes his face was displayed on a screen when he walked past, so he'd always known what the prince looked like. But seeing him in real life, though, that hit different. The photographs and recordings didn't do him justice, not in the least. The pictures did a fine job of showing off his dark features, the handsome cut of his jaw, and the well-defined lines of his muscles. They didn't catch the fire in his eyes. They didn't convey his presence. The way he made a crowd go silent with a single glance. Even Dariel felt like he was hardly allowed to breathe, and he didn't count himself among the prince's subjects. The man didn't wear any more clothing than his followers did. In fact, the only thing that covered his body was a thin loincloth, adorned with gold embroidery that complemented the amulet around his neck. Tattoos of scarlet flames snaked their way up his arms, which were crossed in front of his chest as his powerful wings kept him in the air above his people. He studied the crowd quietly before speaking, his expression grim. His voice carried effortlessly. "Today, we mourn the loss of a great king." Ben tugged at Dariel's arm, but Dariel shrugged him off. In the back of his mind, he knew this was the time to act, while everyone's eyes were glued to their prince. The problem was, he couldn't unglue his own eyes. He wanted to keep looking at Curran. More than that, he wanted to go toward him. Yesterday, in the early morning, the king had died. Struck down by a disease he'd been fighting for years. Dariel didn't care about that. He had no reason to care about that. If anything, he should be gloating at the dragon's misfortune. But it was as if Prince Curran's grief at the loss of his father radiated out of him and infected Dariel. Suddenly, the king's demise felt like tragedy. It felt as if the ground underneath Dariel's feet was concrete. Wasn't concrete, but grass, as if he was kneeling in it, weeping at the sight of his own father's body, while the dampness of the earth seeped into his bones and settled there, making it impossible to move and get to safety. Ben's hand rested on Dariel's shoulder, giving him a nudge, a wake-up call. But the prince wasn't done speaking, and Dariel couldn't turn away. "With the light of these pyres, we shall guide my father's spirit into the heavens," he proclaimed, "that he may watch over us as Amadina's side." I don't know how to say that, by the way. "That he may watch over us at Amadina's side, guiding the hands of fortune in our favor. Whenever we gaze into a fire, may we be reminded of his light." The sound of sobbing filled Dariel's ears. It was likely one of the women they were going to target, the one who'd been crying all along. This was his cue to act. But Prince Curran was looking at him. Not just in his general direction, straight at him. Their eyes met, and heat flooded Dariel's veins like hot lava. What the fuck? He wasn't imagining this. The Prince of Dragons was staring at him. Somehow, Dariel had caught his attention. Dariel cursed, even as the prince's gaze made shivers run down his spine. This was not good. Not good. In fact, this was fucking catastrophic. What if the prince knew? Except he couldn't, and Dariel was panicking for no reason. "Dare," Ben hissed. "We gotta go." Go? Oh, God, yes, they needed to leave. He needed to get the hell away from the Dragon Prince. Fortunately, Prince Curran turned away from him to face the pyre instead. The prince took a deep breath of air, and when he exhaled, it came out in the form of a fireball, setting the wood before him ablaze, adding to the smoke already billowing over the city. Dariel had seen dragons. Dariel had seen dragons breathe fire a few times, but there was something special about the way the prince did it, as if the act was as natural as, well, breathing. God, he had to tear his eyes away. What was wrong with him? Why did he not want to leave this place? Come on, Ben insisted. His friend was in near hysterics now. Dariel couldn't blame him. He was acting beyond strange, and, well, staying here would be dangerous, especially if he was right about the prince catching his eye, which he couldn't be. Why the hell would Prince Curran take an interest in him? Time to bail, Dariel agreed. Still, it took everything in him to turn away from the pyre, and from the dragon fanning the flames. What was that about? Ben's voice was still whiny, even though they'd put some distance between themselves and the old basketball court. You didn't do anything. I'm sorry, Dariel apologized, not for the first time. I don't know. My brain stopped working for some reason. Attending the ceremony and stealing from the people there had been his idea. Why had he made his friend do all the dirty work? There isn't too much in here. Ben inspected the wallet he had snatched from one of the mourners. He held it between his fingers as if it was alive and eight-legged. You think it'll be enough? It's gotta be. Dariel took the wallet from his friend. We'll go to that drugstore on Belham Street. They don't ask too many questions there. Isn't that where the wolves live? They won't eat you. You can't promise me that. If you want to go back home ahead of me, that's fine. Ben's shoulders squared. Nah, I'll come. All right, then. Dariel guided his friend to a streetcar station that would take them where they needed to go. With everyone gathered around the pyres, the stop wasn't too busy, thank the stars. Still, Dariel and Ben kept to a corner by themselves, reading the flyers posted to the side of the glass wall that provided protection from wind and rain. A local tailor advertised his business being able to accommodate any wings, tails, or other appendages of any size. A siren, in the prime of her youth, offered singing lessons and vocal training. PETA asked people to give hydras a chance. I hope we don't run into any hydras, Ben commented. They don't live in the mountains, Dariel pointed out. Worst we'll have to deal with is Bigfoot. Bigfoot isn't real. People used to think dragons weren't real. Ben rolled his eyes at him. That's different. Well, I wish none of them were real. Ben slumped back against the glass wall. Agreed. Imagine how much easier life would be if nobody had magic. Dariel gave his friend a tired smile. There was no point wishing for the impossible. All right. That's the end of, I don't know, the prologue or chapter 1 or something like that. Hope y'all like it. We're going to be working on that in a couple weeks here, after another dragon book from Nora. So we got a bunch of shit coming up here with dragons. But this is available for sale today, and obviously the link's in the description here. And if you're on YouTube, the link's in the description down below in the comments, so you can go buy her up. And audio will be out hopefully by the end of this month. So love y'all. Have fun. See you soon. Peace out. Oh, and Talk to the Beards. Oh, Rambling tomorrow, 1, and then Talk to the Beard next week. So have fun. See y'all then.